How to Understand the Republican Mind and How It Works Web of Reality.
Okay, so I look for things, for ways to understand stuff. And I've seen this for a long time, and it frustrates the far left, it frustrates the far right. And a lot of people just don't care. But you have a fact. The left have a lot of facts, and the rights have a lot of facts. And they fit those facts within their reality. It's like a web of reality. So you're the spider in this metaphor. And in the web, you can't just pluck stuff out. You can't just pluck strings out of the web because the whole reality collapses. The whole web collapses. And so that's the frustration that the left has and the right has, is that they're trying to get points across to the left or to the right, but they're giving the facts and they don't understand why the person doesn't change their reality. I'm going to give you some examples of that, but it's a good way to word how you can look at this differently, how you can look at this like, why aren't they understanding the truth here? And it's very frustrating, especially when both sides have facts to insert. You'll find that Republicans and Democrats do this, and it's beating your head against the wall. Now, in conversation, I tend to be very good at debating. In conversation, I've been told that I'm really good at changing people's belief systems. But I'm going to give you some examples of the far left is the first one. I have this relative who she was trying to figure out where her electricity was going, and so she was looking at different things in the house. And she said that her toaster, she said this to her ex-husband, the toaster has electricity flowing through it. And I said, no, it doesn't. And so I plugged in the toaster. I stuck my hand in the toaster. I have a photo of this. I stuck my hand in the toaster and said, look, it would either be shocked, or if it went through the coils, it would either be shocked or I would burn my hand. So there's no electricity going through this toaster. There might be some electronic version of this in your toaster, which there wasn't. So there was no electricity leaving. So she spent 4 hours arguing with me. She said, yeah, that's what my ex-husband said, and she got really frustrated. And then she said, but I asked an electrician, and he said, yeah, there is electricity going through it when it's off. That's the reason for it's off. So obviously he was blowing her off because her mind wouldn't change. So he was agreeing with her to shut her up. Now, that one piece in her web of understanding, she couldn't figure out wasn't true because she had staked so much emotion to it being part of her reality. That was the reason why her bill was high. And even if it ran 24/7 in full-on heat, it probably wouldn't have run it that high. So there's other reasons why. But that's a good example of someone from the left, far left, that that. So there's another example of the same person. She reminds me of that. She was just over picky about her food habits, and that's a very definite sign. Neurologists know that that's a sign of the far left, that they control their food habits. And she was like massively. So there was a professor who said that. He said, there are little tiny bits of chemicals and things your body can deal with just fine. Gets rid of them. It doesn't affect them at all. It's not like your body is some sealed container that your body can't deal with a little bit here and there, even cyanide and some other stuff. Little tiny bits, it does fine with dealing with it. And so I said that, and she wanted to argue that for hours, which I don't do. But anyway, there's a couple examples of how this web of reality can give you understanding why a Republican or the Democrat is not getting your point, is because they can't change your whole reality. So whole reality is another subject, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So human beings prefer a coherent, a well-structured web of reality. And so as a metaphor, that web of reality, you can't just pick individual pieces out. We prefer to have coherence and stability in that reality, even if we have to ignore facts or ignore reality. So you make up your own little fantasy world to keep that web in place. The question I have is, why can't you go in and see if that reality piece fits there? Now, my brain, just like if I hear something and, okay, so this is reality, I go back and look at what my web says, and I think, okay, now how can my web be right? How can this reality actually fit? I did that with being an atheist. I was a minister, then an atheist, and now I believe there is a divine being. And there is evidence now, especially of a divine being, but atheists tend to want to keep that web going. They want to make sure that they don't believe in a God of some sort, even though there's evidence that it's true. Evolutionary theory is the same way. They want to make sure that they keep their web coherent, even if it's inaccurate. And you would think scientists would go, well, I'm a scientist, I better figure out what the facts are. But they don't. They ignore huge amounts of evidence. So just as an idea, maybe going in and looking at your web of reality, it would be really helpful for you to see what's really going on.